In this video, we're going to take a look at a little trick that you can use when you do your coding activities. So I'm going to give you a little example to begin with. Let's go back to the same example that we worked on in the previous video, which is building a disco machine. So I could want my disco machine now to perform a sequence that's based on 3 colours. First colour is red, second colour I want it to be blue, and the third colour I need it to be green. So I want my disco machine to perform those lines of code, and I want it to do that over and over again. So just based on those 3 colours, I want it to repeat that pattern over and over again. So I can drag another 3 lines of code and set the colours to be the same. So red, blue, green, and again another 3 times. Red, blue, green. So you start to get the idea now. So this is a pattern: red, blue, green, red, blue, green, red, blue, green. I've now got 9 lines of code in my sequence. This only goes on for 9 seconds, so each one is set for 1 second. If my disco lasts for half an hour and a half maybe, I'm going to have to include hundreds if not thousands of lines of code in my sequence, or otherwise my disco machine is going to stop. So once this has performed the 9 lines of code in my sequence, that will then stop, because I'm not telling it to do anything after that 9 seconds. So there is a little trick that you can use here to make that coding a lot easier. Find your pattern. So my pattern here was essentially red, blue, green, and that was then repeated red, blue, green, and so on. So all I need in my code is red, blue, green. I'm now going to introduce what we call a loop. And there's 2 types of loops that we can use. You can find it in this orange, light orange button called control. So if you click on control, the first one I'm going to use is this repeat 10 loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this and I'm going to drop it just underneath the when flag is clicked. And as you can see on the screen, that seems to sort of swallow everything up inside of it. So that's what we want. We want the repeat to sit around the lines of code or the pattern in the sequence that we've identified. We can change this from 10, for example, now to 3. What this means is it'll read and perform this code, so it'll go red, blue, green, go back to the top, red, blue, green, go back to the top for the third time, red, blue, green, and then it will finish. So I've still got this problem of this disco machine coming to an end after 3 loops, or after performing this loop 3 times. I could change this to 100. So that means now after performing this sequence or this pattern 100 times, it'll then stop. What if I want this to go on forever? So what if I decide my disco will go on for a full day, if my disco goes on for a full month? There's an easier way for me to use a loop in this situation, so I can get rid of this repeat 100 loop, and instead of that I'll bring in what we call a forever loop. I'll place my pattern inside of that loop. So what this means now is it follows the same pattern. It goes red, blue, green, and it'll go back to the top, red, blue, green, back to the top, and it'll do that forever. So whenever I click on my flag, whenever this is switched on, it'll go on forever and ever until I turn it off. So that's an example of a loop. My first challenge for you now is I want you to imagine that you're building, you can either imagine a police car or a fire engine, or you can think of an ambulance. What I want you to do is build a sequence using a loop where it alternates between 2 different colours. So if you think about a police car, you've got blue lights, you've got red lights. Think about an ambulance or a fire engine, it's similar, it alternates between blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, and so on. So I want you to use a loop. You can choose whether it's a forever loop or a repeat loop, but use a loop to create the light for the siren of your emergency response vehicle. There we go. I'm hoping that you had fun working your way through that challenge. To be successful at that challenge, you should have used 2 lines of code within your pattern, which is red, blue. I'm using forever loop. You could have used a repeat loop. I guess the most efficient way here would have been to use that forever loop. You could have played about with your timing, so I can change this to half a second if you wanted a quicker siren or quicker alternation between the lights. Or I could increase that to 2 seconds if you want it to be a slower siren, and so on. But essentially, this is the correct code for you to have succeeded in that challenge. So think about what we've learned previously. So we've been able to make the MBOT move. We've been able to use light. We've been able also to use some sounds. What I want you to do now is combine all 3 of them. So your challenge is to build an emergency response vehicle. And there's 3 things for you to consider here. Your vehicle needs to be able to move. Your vehicle also needs to be able to show other people that it's coming. So that means you need some lights. You need some sort of flashing lights to show that the vehicle is coming. We also need to play some sounds to let people hear that you're coming. So 3 things: movement, lights and sound. So that's a challenge. Build an emergency response vehicle and make sure it does all those things. The only thing I want to reiterate here, make sure that you do use a loop within the code or within the sequence for the movement and lights and also the sounds. So that's a challenge. You can stop this video now. Well done. I'm hoping that you enjoyed working through that challenge. So just to quickly explain what you should have done to be successful in that challenge. You should have first of all introduced another 2 of these when flag a click buttons. So you now got 3 bits to this code. We've got the siren, the tap here, so we can set this for 1 second. An alternation between red and blue, back and forwards forever. I could also include the same idea for movement. So I can set any type of movement instruction for my MBOT or for my emergency response vehicle. I might want it to move in 4 different directions. Instead of actually building the code fully, all I need to do there, bring maybe 2 lines of code into my pattern, and I'll put that inside the forever loop, similar to what I did with lights. Last thing was sound. So if you think about the siren of emergency response vehicles, usually got 2 different notes, 2 different frequencies being played. So what I need to do here is play, I can select 2 different notes, maybe A3, C4, I can let that again, that can go on forever using a forever loop. So that's what you needed to do to succeed in that challenge. And what you can see is that that's a very simple looking code. If you compare that to the first one we did, where the disco machine had 9 lines of code and we could have gone on forever. So to make that a bit easier, remember in the future to use forever loops.